Welcome to the Military History Channel, where we dive deep into the battles, strategies, and figures that shaped our world. Every story here is meticulously researched, bringing you the most accurate and compelling narratives from history's greatest conflicts. While the accounts are rooted in fact, the artwork you see is my own interpretation, my artistic rendition of these historical moments. These visuals are designed to bring the past to life, adding my own creative flair to the events that shaped history. So, sit back, immerse yourself, and let's explore history together in a way you've never seen before. Imagine two of South America's poorest countries locked in a deadly struggle over one of the most desolate, unforgiving regions on Earth. A war that would see more soldiers fall to disease than bullets, and a battle for survival where resources were scarce and hope was even scarcer. This is the story of the Chaco War, a brutal conflict between Bolivia and Paraguay that few remember, but whose lessons echo across history. The Chaco War took place between 1932 and 1935. This wasn't your typical conflict. It didn't begin with grand declarations or sweeping invasions, but rather with small skirmishes that escalated into a full-scale war. The cause? A barren stretch of land known as the Gran Chaco. On the surface, this semi-arid wilderness seemed worthless, an inhospitable region filled with thorny scrub and salt flats. But lurking beneath its dry sands was a potential treasure: oil. Or so both countries believed. Bolivia, having lost its coastal access to Chile in the War of the Pacific decades earlier, was desperate to regain a strategic position and secure potential oil reserves for its landlocked economy. Paraguay, much smaller and poorer, was equally determined to defend its honor and sovereignty against a larger neighbor. The Gran Chaco became the stage for a bitter and bloody tug-of-war. The war officially began in June 1932, when Bolivian forces, better equipped and initially better organized, launched an assault on a Paraguayan outpost in the Chaco region. What seemed like a quick campaign soon spiraled into a grueling war of attrition. The soldiers weren't just fighting each other. They were battling the Chaco itself, a landscape where scorching heat, venomous wildlife, and lack of water proved just as deadly as enemy bullets. Despite Bolivia's numerical and technological advantages, tanks, modern rifles, and aircraft, the Paraguayan forces, led by General José Félix Estigarribia, used guerrilla tactics, intimate knowledge of the terrain, and sheer resilience to strike back. The Paraguayans, though fewer in number and poorer in resources, were fueled by a deep-seated resolve to protect their land. They knew the Chaco like the back of their hand, and they used that knowledge to launch ambushes, cutting off Bolivian supply lines and forcing their better-equipped enemy to fight on their terms. While Bolivia and Paraguay were the principal combatants, international players had a significant role in fueling the conflict. Major oil companies, such as Standard Oil, allegedly favoring Bolivia, and Royal Dutch Shell, allegedly supporting Paraguay, were suspected of having vested interests in the potential oil reserves of the Chaco region. Both countries were egged on by promises of foreign support that never fully materialized, but the rumors alone were enough to fuel their determination. The war's fog of misinformation also played a deadly role. Bolivian President Daniel Salamanca, convinced of his army's superiority, pushed for more aggressive campaigns despite heavy losses. Misguided strategies, poor logistics, and a severe underestimation of Paraguayan resolve led to repeated Bolivian failures and mounting casualties. As the conflict dragged on, Bolivia's advantages in equipment and numbers were eroded by a lethal combination of logistical failures and low morale among troops who saw no end in sight. As the war dragged into 1934, both sides were ravaged not only by combat, but also by disease. Malaria, dysentery, and dehydration claimed more lives than actual fighting. With supplies running dangerously low and the front lines bogged down in stalemate, soldiers resorted to desperate measures. Imagine young men, hungry and tired, scouring the wastelands for any sign of water, often finding poisoned wells left by the retreating enemy. It's here that the war's true horror becomes clear. It was less a battle between two armies and more a struggle for survival against an unforgiving land. By late 1934, Paraguay gained the upper hand. Estigarribia's strategic genius came to the fore as Paraguayan forces captured key Bolivian forts, including the pivotal Fort Bolivian. Bolivia, stretched to the breaking point and suffering from political instability at home, saw its forces increasingly demoralized and its supply lines decimated. Meanwhile, Paraguay, though equally strained, maintained higher morale, spurred by its successes and the desire to end the war on favorable terms. By mid-1935, both countries were exhausted. Their economies were in ruins, and their armies were decimated. International mediation efforts finally bore fruit, leading to an armistice in June 1935. Paraguay emerged victorious, retaining control over most of the disputed Chaco region. The formal peace treaty, signed in 1938, confirmed Paraguay's control over 3/4 of the Chaco Boreal, while Bolivia was granted navigation rights on the Paraguay River. The war cost around 100,000 lives, a staggering number for two small nations. It also left deep scars, reshaping both countries' national identities and political landscapes. In Bolivia, the military's disastrous performance led to a period of social and political upheaval, culminating in the 1952 Bolivian National Revolution. Paraguay, though victorious, also faced its own internal challenges in the post-war years. So why does this war matter today? The Chaco War is often overshadowed by the larger conflicts of the 20th century, but it offers stark lessons on the dangers of miscalculation, the harsh realities of guerrilla warfare, and the devastating impact of fighting in hostile environments. It also serves as a reminder of how resource-driven ambitions and international intrigue can fuel conflicts far from the centers of power. In the end, the Chaco War was a tragic testament to human endurance, suffering, and the often overlooked but pivotal battles that have shaped our modern world. If you found this story of the Chaco War fascinating, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more forgotten tales of history's most compelling conflicts. What other little-known wars would you like to see covered? Let us know in the comments.